Today, I want to talk about some of the negative aspects of a career in software engineering. A good chunk of my audience, and CS students in general, do not actually know what a career in software engineering entails. So, I wanted to point out a couple things that you need to be aware of if you're planning on becoming a software engineer. I plan to talk about both some industry-wide issues and job-specific issues. This should give you a good overview of what a career in tech looks like, even if it has a slightly negative bias. Apologies in advance if I sound like I'm nagging, but I felt like I needed to demystify this career to my audience. Alright, let's get to it. Let's begin by talking about what the job market looks like and where some of the negatives start to creep in there. I think that I cannot bring up the job market without addressing one of its most glaring and well-known issues, the entry-level job market. The entry-level market is known to be an absolute bloodbath. The competition is actually insane, and it's partly driven by the fact that everyone wants a piece of the software engineering salary pie. Now, almost everyone knows this, but the reasons for why aren't always clear, so let me address that. Mid-level and senior-level engineers create an incredible amount of value and revenue for a business, and engineers with 3 or more years of experience know it. Therefore, the compensation that those engineers demand is very high, sometimes hitting 3 times the end career earnings of a regular white-collar job after just a couple years of doing the job. Entry-level developers, on the other hand, they typically generate serious losses to a business, at least to start with. This is because you have to pay them well to attract the senior developers, and when they are on the job, they need to be trained in the systems that exist at the company by the seniors, thus pulling them away from doing the high revenue generating tasks. This is clearly a big investment for a business, which actually often does not cover itself because most good developers jump ship for a large pay bump after they start to become really useful. Now, that's not a bad thing from the engineer's perspective, but you can see how this makes smaller businesses a bit apprehensive when hiring entry-level devs. On the other side of the equation is the fresh talent that is trying to break into the industry. And boy, is there a mountain of fresh talent. University grads, bootcamp grads, self-taught devs, college grads, everyone is trying to get in on the gravy train that a career in software promises. This means that you need to stand out while you're learning, and the competition for a spot to get trained for a job in tech is also insane. Bootcamps are expensive and give no recognizable credentials. The CS and Comp admission averages for universities are extremely high, and so are they for smaller colleges too. CS students have to do much more than just do well in class to stand out most of the time. Hackathons, side projects, internships. The industry has expectations of every single student behaving as though they're programming hobbyists, when most people are not. In the end, the entry-level job market becomes very saturated. I think you get the picture. I now need to talk about the work-life balance in the industry in aggregate. Overall, the industry is split into 3 types of jobs. Those where the software engineers are seriously underutilized, those where they're fairly utilized, and lastly, those where the developers are overworked. The distribution of these types of jobs across the market is roughly equal from my personal view. That might sound great at first. 2/3 of the jobs shouldn't suck, but it's actually the other way around. Only 1/3 of the jobs don't suck. Obviously, being overworked sucks, I don't need to argue that, but I think that the statement of a job where you work 10 hours a week sucks needs to be defended. Now, I do need to acknowledge that I'm very conscientious and hate idling, but there are more reasons for why a job that underutilizes you is not good for you other than just being bored. Let's begin by demystifying what it means to work for 10 hours in a week. It doesn't mean that you come in for 2 hours a day and then get to dip after that's done. Instead, it means that you have about 2 hours of productive time in a day, 2 hours of meetings on average, and then a whole lot of thumb twiddling until you feel like it's okay to leave. If you work from home, I guess you could play video games or watch something, but you can't really just go for a hike, for example. There is an expectation that you're available to answer questions during work hours. Another thing is that you typically do not grow much in those positions, and the work becomes repetitive and boring. This means that it can be rather difficult to progress through the career past mid-level if you're severely underutilized all the time. Lastly, many people just get depressed or unhappy when they find no meaning, purpose, or satisfaction out of a job. Of course, a job is supposed to be just a job, but that does not change the fact that if you're always unsatisfied, you'll feel worse over time. Being underutilized or the job becoming too easy is one of the more common reasons for people leaving a job. The next market-wide issue that I want to bring up is the culture in the industry. It is essentially a boys' club that has a lot of problems with ego and often an unhealthy obsession with work. I think that the overly competitive nature of CS education gets to people, and that translates to elitist garbage like, if you're not working at Google, you're a failure, which is just plain stupid. The lack of women in the industry is actually also a very big problem. I already mentioned how constrained the supply of senior level developers is, and the fact that basically half of the world's population is absent from the talent pool for one reason or another makes the matters so much worse. I mean, it's so bad that even my channel gets essentially no female viewership. Another thing that is a negative when it comes to this industry is that most jobs out there are not exciting at all. I would even go as far as saying that the vast majority are boring as hell. A lot of starry-eyed CS new grads get blindsided by this after taking courses in AI, ML, computer vision, games programming, and other cool things in university, and then seeing what the jobs actually are. Most jobs out there are simple web dev roles where you make a simple CRUD web app that connects to a database and displays information in some way over, and over, and over, and over, and over again until you leave and do the exact same thing with a different name on your entry badge. It's actually worse at the big tech firms. Not only are you making the same stupid CRUD apps there too, but you're an even more insignificantly tiny cog in a massive machine. It's so easy to lose sight of why you're making something that even if you're working on a super cool product, you just stop caring. Last industry-wide issue is going to seem a bit weird, but it's the compensation structure at most companies. I'm mostly referring to the fact that a lot of the compensation in well-paying companies is equity-based. Let me make my case on this real quick. The fact that a lot of developers are paid with stock options, and other equity-based financial vehicles means that both your employment and your financial well-being is tied up in the health of the company. And that's ignoring wider market risk, sector risk, and so on. You're exposed to much more financial risk when you're paid with equity. Just imagine being hired by a place like Coinbase in November of 2021 and watching your total comp evaporate before you can sell even a single share of your RSU grant because it hasn't even vested yet, while the company is rescinding already accepted job offers. Anyway, I think that's enough about the big picture stuff. Let's talk about the negative aspects of the day-to-day job of a software engineer. In this section, I will talk about the issues that software engineers encounter in the day-to-day work, and will ignore a lot of the industry-wide issues. As an example, I will not talk about being overworked, as that is an issue across the industry that I already talked about, and it's also not specific to the profession. The first thing that I want to bring up is the fact that traditional CS and CompE education through universities does not really prepare you for the job almost at all. This is what I meant before when I mentioned that entry-level developers need to be trained further. Most traditional curriculum in university does not use the tech stack that most companies use, nor does it cover the common developer tools and systems used in industry. A lot of CS grads simply do not know what version control is, do not understand what is code review, do not know anything about continuous integration, deployment strategies, debuggers, and so much more. Here's the thing. All of the stuff that I brought up just now is extremely basic, but it's just not a thing that courses cover. After all, it's not computer science. These are extra business processes and quality control systems that ensure that the software you produce actually works. These are invaluable, but take some time to get used to and learn for the first time. However, it's not like you get to learn it once and stop learning from there. You have to keep learning all the time. If you change jobs, then the business processes in place and all the tools will more than likely be different. The overarching ideas will be the same, sure, but the specifics will be different. But changing jobs is not the only time you will encounter change. The world of tech is rapidly evolving, with tools becoming better, APIs getting deprecated and replaced, new or different tools being integrated into your business. There is simply no way to kick back, dial it in, and just do the same job every day for the rest of your career. Another thing that is an issue is actually an issue related to the outsider's perception and expectation of what software engineering is. The problem is that software engineers do not just write code. Matter of fact, writing code often becomes a relatively small part of your day as a software engineer. I think that I spend around 20% of my week writing code on a good week. There are a lot of tasks that software engineers have to do that are quite removed from just sitting behind a computer and hacking away. A lot of time is spent reading code during code review, while analyzing project feasibility, learning how to use an API, learning how others are using or rather misusing your API too. Another good chunk of a software engineer's time is spent on all the business processes in place. Managing releases, following up on feature requests from other teams, helping out during customer escalations and outages, coordinating work with other teams, and lastly, communicating with stakeholders or customers. This difference between expectations and reality is actually rather difficult to reconcile for hobbyist programmers when they just start as software engineers. After all, a lot of this extra work and responsibilities isn't exactly something fun, and often some parts can drag on for a long time. Another problem that I would like to bring up is that, unlike in education, on the job you have no guarantee of a solution to a problem being simple, or even a guarantee of a solution's existence. When in university, all problems you face are given to you by someone that will eventually grade it, meaning that you know that the problem at least has a solution, and you can even ask for help. On the job, however, you have no such comfort. Sometimes you are the first person to ever figure out a specific problem, and nobody can really help you. This becomes particularly annoying when you have to debug an issue in a massive code base, and the code in question has been written years ago by someone that already left the company. Issues like that can take weeks, if not longer, to figure out while you feel like you're making zero progress because you keep hitting dead ends. Thing is, the fact that you're hitting different dead ends means that you are making progress, but it is still very psychologically difficult to keep failing for weeks on end with no guarantee that a solution even exists. The last issue I would like to bring up is tech debt. For those not in the know, tech debt is the sum of all the bad programming decisions that make the code base harder to work with, harder to debug, and harder to understand. The reason it's called tech debt is because just like with financial debt, it grows over time as you keep building things on top of it. And here's the thing, tech debt does not just magically go away if you keep ignoring it. This is absolutely obvious when you say it, but addressing tech debt is almost never fun. It's not fun in multiple ways actually. Both fixing the issues and getting time allocated to fix them is usually an incredibly painful process filled with frustration. Here's the thing about tech debt. Many non-technical managers do not view addressing tech debt or refactoring as an investment, but rather as a pointless time sink because nothing of value is produced while you're working away at fixing the issues. Getting time allocated to do a major refactor, redesign, or broad code cleanup can be an absolute pain in some organizations. And it's not like actually fixing the tech debt is easy either. Quite often, it gets left for so long that getting rid of it is a really slow, boring, and painful process. I don't know many developers that like having to commit shotgun surgery across a massive code base when tackling tech debt. However, it only gets worse if you let it pile up and sit there. Anyway, I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. In this video, I talked about all the negative aspects of a career in software engineering, both broad industry issues and job-specific issues that you have to deal with as a software engineer. One thing that I would like to mention is that while this video was explicitly negative, I do still think that software engineering is an awesome career path. The pay is incredible, there are many opportunities for career advancement, and even if the entry-level market is a bloodbath, it's still one of the most rapidly expanding industries out there, and we even have it comparatively easy when looking at other industries. I just felt like I had to talk about the realities of this job that a lot of people online tend to ignore, and to educate the CS students that are striving to become software engineers what this career actually looks like. If you'd like me to talk about something, then please ask me in the comments below. I've actually made a couple of videos based on viewer requests before, so I would love to hear from you. Either way, thank you for your time. Bye.